Good morning and welcome to another week with Grace Church. We're so glad you joined us online today. Please note that if you would like to give online, you can do so at www.gchurch.us/giving. You also have the availability to give through text by texting 84321 or by mailing a check to 1515 17th Street in North Bend, Oregon. As always, you can stay up to date with what's going on at the church through our website, www.gchurch.us. And now stay tuned for another impactful teaching from our Pastor Ron. And again, thanks for joining us.
And my sermon changed over the week. And not because people weren't coming, it just changed. And the original title was this, Father's Day, is courage is simply doing something afraid. And I really was pulling toward that because I like that phrase, and I wanted to talk to fathers. And we've changed a little bit, but not much. And what I'm going to talk to you about isn't just for dads, really. I believe what I'm saying here today is important for mothers and grandparents, if you've got grandkids. I was thinking about teachers. You touch a lot of children. Coaches. We have coaches here. I can't think of anything else right now. Anyone leading children, because we live in a really difficult culture. And if you have any way to touch kids, this sermon is for you. If you don't care about kids, then you can just not listen today, I guess. I don't know. But let's talk a little bit about that, because I don't want you to think, well, I don't have children at home, or I have never been married, or I don't have kids, or I'm a woman, and all that. Because I want to tell you that this is about how we are to change the world through next generations, really. So let's turn to Acts chapter 4. It says, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived, and I love these two words, that they were uneducated and untrained. The word uneducated, I just love Greek language. Uneducated is a word, the base of this word is gramma, and that means the written word, gramma, and it's uneducated, so it's, if you put an A in front of it, it's a grammatos, and it means that they didn't have a formal education. Now, how many know that the disciples had an education? They went in an extended 3.5 years. They didn't take off for summer, and so they were able to get their master's degree from the master, is what they did. But they didn't learn, most of them, some of them did, but they didn't learn the way that the Jews thought that learning had to happen, and that was through the law, through teachers of the law. And so the uneducated wasn't that they didn't go to school, but they hadn't been educated in the law. And then here is the word untrained. I was telling Mike today, I love this word, the untrained word, because the word untrained is a Greek word, idios. We get the word idiot. What that meant, more than anything else, is they looked at them and realized this is not the cream of the crop. Do you understand what I'm saying? Jesus, when he picked his disciples, didn't pick the best. In fact, it seemed like he went to just the worst. You know, God help poor Peter. What? He was untrained. You know what I'm saying? He was always saying something idiotic. He was always doing that. Jesus went to people that when people looked at them, they could say, what these people are saying is way beyond who they are. See, it says, and they realized that they had been with Jesus. Do people know? This, I guess the thing that I need to come back to each time is, do people know you've been with Jesus? I mean, do they really know? Well, I mean, the people that you meet on a day-to-day basis, you know, When they get finished talking with you, do they know you've been with Jesus? I mean, the conversation that goes is, does it lead toward, well, that guy must be a Christian. I mean, does that what happens? I was talking with, actually, it was a wrong number. I called a wrong number, and I said, I was looking for a real estate agent, and I got the wrong number, and I called, and I said, is this so-and-so? And they said, no, it's not. And I am so sorry. And the lady said, may the Lord Jesus Christ be with you today. And I thought, they have been with Jesus. Now, you don't always have to advertise it that way, but when people hang around you for a while, and then you say, oh, by the way, I go to church, and they say, no kidding, you do? Listen to me, something must be wrong. Something has to be wrong. And people know I'm a Christian, and by the way, I have a vocation just like many of you do. I go out and show houses and talk to people, and very seldom do I tell them I'm a pastor, but very often I talk about Jesus. Very often. Almost everybody. And you see, when it comes down to it, and by the way, I don't bring that up. I never bring it up. Everybody always brings it up. I got a little sticker on the back of my car that says Grace Church. And people say, do you go to Grace Church? I say, yes, I do. What kind of church is that? I said, it's the best church in town. I said, oh, these people love Jesus. We just love Jesus. And then they say something like this, really, who's the pastor? And I say, I hate this part. I hate saying, well, it's me. Because everything changes at that point. I don't want people to think, well, I'm a pastor. I want them to think this, I have been with Jesus. My goodness, I spent way too much time on that. Let's talk about dads matter. Everybody else matters. Dads matter too, And so let me show you a survey done. It's called Men in Media. I don't know if you can read this or not. This is how TV, movies, any advertising we're seeing today, this just came out I think last week, is that if men are seen, they're 18% more likely to be seen as metrosexual or pretty boys. You know what I'm talking about? Ladies' men are skirt chasers or macho men and action heroes, but hardly ever are they seen as good-hearted, tries to do the right thing, hardworking, self-sacrificing, protective, and fatherly. In fact, if you look at most sitcoms today, fathers are stupid. Fathers are Homer Simpson. Fathers are just idiots. And we tend to kind of laugh at that and move in it, but I believe that there is a warfare against the anointing, and I think there's a warfare against fathers. That's what I believe. So dads matter. Let me just give you some stuff here real quick. We'll run through this. Dads matter financially. 12% of children living with a mother and a father live in poverty. That's just 12, but 4 times that if just they live only with a mother. And I know that some of you have gone through divorces and different things, and that was something that happened. It's not your lifestyle, but I'm here to tell you that children, this is what this means, this is condemnation. Children need a father figure. By the way, let me tell you this, children need a mother figure. By the way, let me tell you this, children really need grandparents. I know that because I'm a product of a great mother and dad and wonderful grandparents who all were involved in my life. And because of that, Debbie and I make sure we're totally involved with our grandchildren because they are totally better than our kids are. Just thought. I practiced on my kids. I know how to raise grandkids now. Dads matter academically. They're more likely to get A's. Dads matter in discipline. There's significantly higher odds that those kids will be involved. If a dad is involved, that they'll be involved in drugs and be incarcerated. Dads matter physically. Children are more likely to have better health. Of course, spiritually, fathers who model faith through regular prayer, Bible reading, church attendance, participation, and have a significant impact on their child's life. When a father is the spiritual leader of the home, it's likely that the child will have an active faith and be increased significantly. And because of that, it takes courage to be a dad, because any idiot can produce a child. Yes, we need a t-shirt. Let me tell you why I was afraid to be a father. Debbie and I got married young, and you won't believe this, but I was spoiled, and I was self-centered. I don't know how we stayed married, but we were very young when we got married. And Debbie, of course, she wanted children right away, and man, I fought it. I fought having kids. I didn't want children. And I made a list. I showed it to Debbie this week. I said, "Is this the list?" And she said, "That's the list. The list of things why I was afraid to become a father." Because courage is simply doing something afraid. The first one is, can I make that move to adulthood? Man, that is what, listen, men 50 years old are still trying to figure that one out, okay? You know what, listen, this was some stuff I would say. I would say things like, well, this is going to force me to grow up. I grew up, I'm a product of the 60s and the early 70s, and so we were hippies, and we didn't trust anybody over 40, and I thought, man, if you have kids, all of a sudden you're just done. And the real reason, listen, I don't know that I said this often, but Debbie said, yeah, I know that, is I went skiing all the time. I went snow skiing all the time. That's what I did when I was in my 20s. And I'll have to stop snow skiing because now we're going to have a kid. And, of course, the second thing was, can I afford a new baby? You know, now what I'm going to have to do. Now we can't spend money as we want to because I think they eat. And will I be a good father? You know, I wasn't sure I could be a good father. I mean, I had a good father, but he wasn't around much. He was working all the time, and I thought, I don't know if I know how to be a father. And then this is a big one. Will my wife love the baby more than me? And the answer is yes. She did. I didn't like it. I mean, when Jason was born, all of a sudden I wasn't number one. I lost the premier spot. I did that. I got over it. And of course, can I keep my baby safe? Because, see, it takes courage to be a father. It takes courage to be a mom. It takes courage to be a teacher or a coach or a leader. And every one of us have that ability to do that. And so I want to talk about this. This is really what I want to talk about now, is arrows and archers pointing children in the right direction. Every one of you need to listen to this. I know some say, it's too late for me. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because it's your responsibility, according to the Bible, to be parents, godly parents, and it's also your responsibility, according to the Bible, to be good elders. Well, I don't like the word elder, but I'm not talking about, I mean, the Bible says we want the older women to teach the younger women, the older men to teach the younger men. You see, there's a responsibility that goes way past, do I have children or not? It goes way past that we have people in our church, and many of them are gone right now, but we have people in our church who are struggling to raise their children, and they need input, whether they know they need it or not. They need input, because we are all to point children in the right direction. And sometimes, if it's not your children, you don't care what direction they're going in. But as a church and as a body of Christ, it's all of our responsibilities to point children in the right direction. Because if we're not going to point them in the right direction, they're going to go where they want to go, and they don't need to go. Listen, they don't need to go where they want to go. They need to go where they need to go until they're mature enough to know where they want to go. So let's look at it. Psalms. Oh, yeah. Learning to initially protect your children from the world so you can eventually aim them at the world, which brings us to the text of this time, is children are a gift from the Lord, a reward from the mother's womb. A young man's sons and daughters, and a young woman's sons and daughters are like arrows in an archer's hand. That just struck me. Arrows in an archer's hand, and the man who fills his quiver with sons will be very blessed. Arrows are the children. Archers are us. And here's the reward. We will be blessed. Now, blessing is what we all desire. We all desire for God to be blessed. And one of the things I've told my sons, and I've told some of you, is that after 4 years, I still hadn't grown up. But Debbie talked me into having a son, and then it was 8 more years. We can't afford it. We can't do this. 8 years later, we had another son. And as I grew older and wiser, because nobody told me this, I didn't realize how important it was to have more children. In those 8 years, I should have had 2 or 3 more kids. And he said, oh, you know what that would have cost. I know what that would have cost financially, but I know the blessings that come from that. Yesterday, I've got 2 sons, and somewhere I've adopted a son. Nordy has become my son. I don't know how he became my son. He's a friend of Ryan's, and he calls me Papa Ron, and Mama. He calls Debbie Mama, and he's always coming over, and he's always wanting to do something. And yesterday, Ryan and Nordy came over and plumbed in our sink because I don't know how to plumb in a sink, and they climbed underneath that thing. They're both the same size. They're big guys, 6 feet tall. Big guys, and they're stuck under that sink putting it together. And I'm watching them work, and you know what I thought? I thought, suckers. No, I thought, I am so blessed. So blessed. What great kids. Debbie did a good job. And we didn't even raise one of them, I mean, the blessing is, listen, the blessing is for people who relate to you on a father, mother, grandfather, whatever it is, they relate to you in such a way that they want to bless you. After all day, they worked all day yesterday. They worked and took them out to lunch and came back and worked some more. And Nordy wanted to make a little, it's not a billy club, it's a salmon club. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, salmon club. And he had a chunk of wood. We cut this big stump up, and we cut it in a piece and tuned it. And man, he had a great time, and I was able to teach him and talk to him, and see we're pointing him in the right direction. We're pointing these people who look up to us in the right direction. Before I left, I said, "Oh man, I forgot." The day got away from us. It was like 7 o'clock, and the day just got away from us. We're having a great time together. And I said, "Oh man, I forgot. I don't even know why I said that. I was going to move all those pellets over here in this other room." And those 2 boys just jumped up and grabbed those things. And I'm looking again. I think I've worked them all day and it wasn't because they had to. It's because they wanted to. They wanted to bless me. The blessing. Listen, what I'm talking about is if we learn how to point kids in the right direction. If we learn how to do this, the blessings are amazing. Did you know that what is needed in this culture today? I'm way off my sermon. In this culture today, you know what's needed is good, godly models. I'm not talking about supermodels. I'm talking about modeling parents because we don't have parents. Where am I going to go here? Children, okay. There are 2 kinds of children. One, they're naturally compliant. This is child development professionals said this. There's category 1, naturally compliant, intrinsically kind, inherently logical, and there's a second group, and that's your kids. Because I want to tell you something. I happened in school, I was a child education major. That's what I took in college to begin with. And I happen to know that there are no children in category 1. All kids are in some other category. That's where they are. And so we learned some things. Listen, number 1, children aren't property. They're not just born here on this earth. Every child, think about this. Every child is a gift from God. Every wanted child, every accident, every child is a gift from God. You know that man that shot the guy at the mill yesterday, or day before yesterday? When was it? Yesterday? Day before yesterday, Friday. And he ran over that elderly couple. And he went and killed his girlfriend. Did you know he was a gift from God? And he's going the wrong direction. His mother, he had a mother, he had a father. But I'm telling you, some way, he wasn't pointed in the right direction. Every child. Can you imagine Adolf Hitler as a child, as a baby? Every child is a gift from God. Every child needs to be pointed in the right direction. If parents can't do that, it's up to us to do that. Number two, children are not just born from, our children are on loan from God. They're not property. You don't get to own them. And number 3, children cannot make up their own minds. And I am so sick of hearing this. People say, well, we have decided to let our children make up their own minds about God, and so we're not going to teach them about God, and when they get 18, they can make up their own minds. It's too late. It's too late. Let me tell you that right now. It's just too late. When you begin to allow your children, or you're allowing your grandchildren, I have grandchildren. Every day I have them is an opportunity for me to point them in the right direction. Every time you get the kids, if you're even out on the beach at a bonfire, is an opportunity for you to point them in the right direction. I mean, Bill, you know, being a teacher, my God, these kids need to be pointed in the right direction. And it's getting worse. We find it in the church, we find it in the school, we find it in our youth group, we find it everywhere, that children are going every which way and they've never been pointed. And the Bible is telling us as elders, as pastors, as grandparents, as parents, as friends, as neighbors, whoever we are, to use every moment we can to teach kids the direction that they should go. You know, when we get older, I'll talk to Jim. He's the only one I can talk to at this. Jim, as we get older, about the best thing we can say to some kids is, get off my grass. You're too noisy. Point them to God. Point them to God. Train up a child in the way he should go. He will not depart from it. We are to train him in the way. So every right is right. You said this was William Penn. Anybody know who William Penn was? He invented the ink pen. Right is right, even when everybody is against it. Wrong is wrong, even when everybody is for it. You believe that? I don't care what culture says. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And we live in a country where they're saying nothing is right, nothing is wrong. You got to point them in the right direction. Let me tell you about archers, because we're all archers here today, except just a few children that came. We're all archers here today, and archers must be strong, because the stronger an archer is, the farther that arrow can fly. Are you with me? Have you ever picked up a recurve bow? When I was in grade school, I had a paper route, and I bought a recurve bow. You know what that is? That's not a compound bow. That's just a recurve bow. I bought a recurve bow. I bought it at a pawn shop. It didn't have a string on it, but I bought a string. And so I bought it and brought it home, and my dad looked at it, And he said, son, this is a 75-pound bow. You know what that means? That means this 12-year-old boy who paid everything he had saved for a year in his paper route had bought a bow that he wasn't strong enough to pull. I never shot one arrow with that bow. Archers are to be strong. Archers, the stronger you are, the better you are, the farther you can shoot that arrow, the more it will fly in the right direction. Like arrows, children, in the hands of a warrior or archer. That's our moms and dads. That's Psalms 127, verse 4. So this is how you become strong. Let me give it to you. Strengthen your relationship with God. You can't give what you don't have. You walk with God so your kids can see it. Don't do what I do what I tell you to do. It doesn't work. Kids only do what they see. So first of all, the most important thing you can do, you say, this world needs to change. You know, these kids today, let me tell you, first of all, number one, without a doubt, number one, the only thing you need to do to begin with is you need to be strong, and therefore you must strengthen your relationship with God. Has nothing to do with the kids right now. It has everything to do with you, because you will never lead one person in the right direction if you're not going strongly in that direction. Can you see what I'm saying? If you're living a nonchalant life, you're gonna be so spiritually weak, you'll never be able to propel them. The best you're going to be able to do is wag your finger at them and say, would you quit doing that? Do you know how much that helps? It doesn't even help dogs. No, no, no. That means nothing. Not even your wife, no. Break a finger by doing that. They saw Peter and John. And they saw they'd been with Jesus. Now let me tell you the second thing. This is the second thing for parents. The most important thing for parents is that you strengthen your relationship with your spouse. Do you know, Debbie and I, we knew one thing about both of our parents, is that they loved each other. My boys know this. My boys know that there's no doubt about it. I love Debbie. There's no condemnation in divorce and singles and stuff like that. But I want you to know that, listen. Children today are so hungry for that mom and dad and that love that they have one for another, because what's happened in our culture and our society is people don't like each other anymore. And they're together for the craziest reasons. And there's so much divorce and remarriage, and they're marrying for the wrong spots and all these wrong reasons, and all these things are happening. And it's confusing to the children. They can't see the strength or why a strong father is important or a strong mother is important. And if they don't know, if they don't know the strength of a mother and a father, they don't know your strength as a Christian, they're never going to understand why they should go toward Christ. If you ask most people today, everybody's been a child, but if you're pointing somebody to Jesus and you say, you need Jesus, they'll say, why? Because nobody has ever shown them the good part of being a Christian. They've seen the frowns and they've seen the finger wagging, and they've heard the crazies on television with their miracle water for $45 an ounce, and stuff like that. But they've never really seen a boots-on person who is totally committed to God and totally committed to people. For this reason, he managed to leave his father and mother and be cleaved, is the way King James says, leave and cleave, and be joined to his wife, and two shall be one flesh, and I'm no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Again, you can't change yesterday. There's some things, you can't unscramble an egg. It's just the way it is now, so you have to work with that. But I want to tell you something. This is two things you need to understand. Number one, Children were made to leave. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. It's a gift from God. Now, they may be 42 when they leave, but they're made to leave, but we are made not to leave. It's important. It's important. So here's my greatest titles. Again, I'm talking about myself. I'm going to quit pretty early today because some of this I put in way too much. This is what I am. I'm a child of God. Who are you? I'm a child of God. God is my Father, and that's who I am, and this is in line. This is exactly the way I live. I am a child of God. My first love is Debbie. I am Debbie's husband even before I'm a father. So it's important because if I'm not Debbie's husband, if I can't show them that I love their mother, something's going to be missing in their lives when pointing these boys in the right direction. I'm the father. It took me a while to learn this, but I think I've learned it, and I've shown them I've learned it. These are my boys, and I'm with them 100%. And every once in a while, somebody will say something or do something against my boys, and they don't know it. But when you say something about my boys, you just lost some points in our friendship. We could be better friends. You better be careful. I'll just tell you right now. You better be careful how you treat my sons. You better really be careful how you treat my wife. I had a little boy one time curse at my wife, and before I knew what happened, I was ready to go to jail. I had to get backed up against that fence. It's terrible. It was ungodly, but it's true. I'm the grandfather of 6, and you better believe that. They know their papa. And then I'm the pastor of Grace Church. Does this make you feel bad because you're like number 5 on the list? Well, it is, because there's nothing more important than my God, my relationship with my God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my grandchildren, and my relationship with the gifting that we talked about earlier here. And then here lately I've always had hobbies, you know. Well, I'm a fisherman, I'm a hunter, I'm a computer programmer. Right now I'm a woodworker, but that didn't make the list. Let me tell you something, and this is a little touchy, but I'll tell you anyway. Be careful how you treat your hobbies, because they're just hobbies. Be careful. We live in an area where, you know, I'm a tremendous Seahawk fan, really, really. And I've had opportunities, actually, to go to Seahawk games. Ever been to a Seahawk game? Because it happens on Sunday. And that's a hobby, and that is not my relationship with God. So I've never been. And I've never been to a Duck game. And you know why? Because it cotton picking rains during Duck games. You know what I'm saying? It's cold. No, I'm just going on. So pointing our children in the right direction, parents, archers, teachers, coaches, whatever we are. By the way, coaches, we've got people involved in sports here. Man, if you love those children, Jesus is more important than how fast they can throw a baseball. Somehow we got to get that across. I don't know how. With parents the way they are sometimes, some way we got to do it. You know, what a great opportunity. Let me just back up and say this, because it sounds like I'm against baseball and Disneyland. Well, maybe Disneyland a little bit, but not much. If I say any more, the lady at the media booth will shut me down right now. There'll be not one more thing happen. But somehow we have to turn. Listen, somehow we have to turn hobbies into pointing children, adults, in the right direction. So yesterday I had Nordy, and he made this bat, and I'm talking to him about stuff. And you'll be surprised, but all of a sudden it came around to church. You need to be at church tomorrow. Well, he didn't come, but listen, I'm not going to let that opportunity go. Here I've got an arrow, a strong arrow, a good arrow, and he just needs somebody to shoot him the right direction. Secondly, arrows need to be straight, because the straighter an arrow is, the longer it flies. So this is what it says. I'm going to hit this real quick because we don't really need this in this morning, but maybe somebody will listen to this on YouTube. Chasten or discipline your children while there's still hope. Have you ever felt like there's no hope? And don't set your heart on his destruction. Let me tell you, this was written for teenagers. Sometimes you think there's no hope, we'll just kill them and start again. Not really. Well, maybe we've thought about it. So here it is. I'm going to go quick back here. You begin discipline early. It needs to be consistent. That's what the word diligent means, by the way. Let's look at that scripture real quick. It says, these words I command you today to be in your heart. That's where it begins, with you in your heart. And you should teach them diligently to your children. That means consistently. And he says that when you sit down, when you stand up, when you go to sleep, all the time. You do those things. Diligence, I've said this before, but I need a life point in this sermon. Diligence is doing little things for a long time until it makes a big difference. I like people who say this. Don't you like people who say this? I'm going to be there and they're there. Or I'm going to do something and they do it. Isn't that good? Man, you know why that's good? It's because it gives us security. When it gives us security, we are feeling better. That's why I never tell a kid, never tell somebody that you're trying to lead to God. Never do this diligently. Don't ever say, I'm going to do something, and then don't do it. And we need to emphasize integrity. Listen, we need to be people of integrity. We live in a country where people are famous for doing nothing. They have a lack of integrity. The Greek word for that is Kardashian. What are they famous for? Nothing. Nothing good. Nothing. We have YouTubers. My grandchildren watch YouTube videos. They watch people playing with toys. Adults playing with toys. They're famous. They got 1 million followers. What are they famous for? For nothing. For absolutely nothing. They're getting sponsors now. My kids are telling me if you get 1 million views, you can quit your job, because now the residual of the advertisements that comes with that, you quit your job and you're done. All you have to do is just do a blog about Disneyland once a week and you're in. What are they famous for? Nothing. What are they producing? Nothing. So when we talk about integrity, we need to talk about people. You know what the big thing is right now? I'm getting off a little bit. Let me think. God, can I say this? Yes, I can. Some people, right now, there's help wanted everywhere. You want to go to work and have $14 an hour to flip burgers if you want to. You know why? Because nobody's at work. You know why? Because everybody's on unemployment. You know why? They do not have to work because they have no. Well, some of you might be on unemployment, so I won't say it. Look what Psalmist David said. But as for me, say that. But as for me, you know what that means? No matter what everybody else is doing, this is what I'm going to do. I'll walk in my integrity. That's what I'll do. Number 4, assign responsibility. Kids ought to have something to do. You got to teach them how to work. Number 5, set limits. Did you know a study was done not long ago? In a playground, they took the fence down in an elementary playground and did a study. And all the kids, well, first of all, they had the fence up and the kids played in the entire playground. They took the fence down and the kids huddled around one piece of equipment in the middle. Now they at first they complained because they were fenced in, but when they took the fence down, insecurity set in, and they all huddled together because they're looking for security. We'll just open it up now, boys. Everybody gets to choose who they are and what they are. Everybody gets to choose what's right and wrong. It's causing tremendous insecurity in our nation today because we like insecurity. Did you ever play basketball as a child? Maybe still do. Have you ever thought about playing basketball without rules? I always remember a BC cartoon. You remember BC, the cavemen? They're always inventing something. This guy's got this big rock, football-shaped rock. The guy says, "What's that?" He says, "The football." He said, "What's football?" And he takes the rock and he says, "Run." The guy runs and he throws the football. And the guy catches it. And you see him. He runs over the first hill. He runs over the second hill. He runs out of sight. BC says, next time we play this game, we need to set some boundaries. Do you understand? It was no fun without boundaries. Life, you say, well, there's way a lot of rules. Life is insecure without boundaries. Even a few months ago when these anarchists were taking over cities, you know what they did as soon as they took over the city? They built walls. They put security guards around it. You know why? Because they're insecure just to be out there in the middle of nowhere. Set limits. This is just for you to do. I like this one. This is what I believe. Let your home be filled with laughter instead of fighting. I don't allow my kids to wrestle in my house. My kids my grandkids. Well, I don't let my kids either. Because my house is not a place, it's not a playground to flop around in. My house is a place for us to build relationships. And we don't allow the kids to do that, jump around like that. So here's the first thing. Parents are the archers. You got to be strong. 2, children are arrows. They must be straight. And number 3, this is so important. You need to aim to be sure. You're not just shooting at something, at nothing. You're shooting at something. So initially, protect your children from the world, so you can eventually, this is 41, I think. Eventually, you can point your children at the world.
Thank you again for joining us this week at Grace Church. If you'd like to hear the sermon in its entirety, please go to www.gchurch.us. And we'll see you next week.